Welcome, everybody. It's our closing session, very exciting session today, as all of them have been, with amazing speakers, topics, conversations, movements, call to action, you name it. We are really rocking with LULAC with this inaugural summit that has been launched with this brand new committee after 90-some years that is going to place Latinos. We're already there, but collectively in a coalition building movement with LULAC's 100-year history and brand, to really put technology, innovation, entrepreneurship, all those things that we know we have, but not so often get stereotyped. We want to break that mold. No more stereotypes, right? So we brought in great speakers to be those that have been, since probably they were born, it's in their DNA, Latinx change agents. They're here to share their stories, their very personal stories, to inspire each other and myself. I'm always inspired every single day. And for all of us to aspire what is possible. We have to dream, we have to look ahead, be willing to get out of our comfort zone and get the job done. As an immigrant myself, I said, well, immigrants get the job done. And now we're going to do it in a digital space. We're doing it already, but we need to get the voices out. So with that opening, I'm going to be asking each to say their 5-minute story in their most way that they will reach us. And then we'll open it up for questions. It's an only 30-minute session. So if we stay with us in social networking, many of us will be there and we can then have all of us have a very informal chat. So with that, I'm going to start by welcoming Marcela Escobar-Alava, Deputy CAO. She has many roles in her career, currently with the great position that she has representing Latinas in tech, in STEM, and at the White House. So we would love to start hearing her story, and then we will continue with Abril and then ending with Pedro. Please, Marcela, and welcome and thank you for joining us in your busy schedule. You're mute. You're mute. I'm muted.
All right. Can you hear me okay now? All right. Thank you, so LULAC, for having me here today and getting to speak to everyone, and welcome everyone. So today I was asked to speak a little bit of my story with you, but before I do, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So what does a waitress, entrepreneur, accounting clerk, and a single mom have in common? That would be me. How did I go from working in a restaurant to being a technology leader in the White House? The answer that I give is being of service to others. It's really important for me. And finally, how did I execute my career journey? I follow what I call my happy meter. And for me, I'm not going to go into my happy meter, but basically it's like my spidey sense. If it makes me happy, I keep doing it. And so this has led me into what I'm doing today. So I'm super excited. But before I start, I wanted to share some numbers and facts with you. Did you know that the current data shows that the odds are against us, especially Latinas in STEM? We're 8% of the population, but make up just 2 to 3% of the STEM workforce. And while women are earning the majority of the undergraduate and advanced degrees, they're still underrepresented in the STEM space. Another issue is for Latinos in general, that 65% of computer and broadband access Latinos have, compared to 80% for white Americans at home. And then technology, you know that it's a male-dominated industry. And a couple of other facts is that on average, Latinos will be paid than their male counterparts in STEM, earning 55 cents to the dollar. So one other fact that I learned in the last couple of weeks, that where an Asian American man in the STEM field earns $103,000 on average, the Latino will make $57,000. So really pointing out the underrepresentation in kind of the higher level positions within STEM for Latinos. And we hear these headlines and statistics constantly. Everywhere I go, there's always these hurdles to overcome, giant mountains that we must climb, up against the wind, up against all odds, up against everything. But does that intimidate me? No. Has that held me back? No. So I actually have made more equal to my peers in STEM. And yes, I've had one male mentor and sponsor who fought for me to get me equal pay and groom me for advancement. And that was at Sony. And I also, as you do, need to know your worth and your value to the companies that you work for. I've been able to continue to work and grow and take on greater and greater responsibilities. And this day I get to choose where I get to spend my time. And so I've chosen to accept this position as an appointee at the White House, where it's a privilege and an honor to serve my country. I feel the biggest reason I've been able to get here is because I ascribe to limitless thinking. I don't see obstacles. Instead, I prepare. I'm ready for whatever may come ahead. And much like you, I learn new skills, learn new approaches, and learn new businesses as something that I must do, and encourage everyone else to do that as well. So you can read my bio or LinkedIn profile to see my trajectory. Progressive continued growth, which all recruiters want to see. The milestones along my tech journey started with a depth and breadth in every aspect of business, from accounting to legal to sales and marketing. I started very young, around 9 years old, helping in my parents' family restaurant in Los Angeles. I had a life-changing event that almost caused me to drop out of college and subsequently prompted me to start working at Sony in an entry-level position. I stepped up to take on more challenging projects and working with IT to solve business problems. My interest in tech took off as I looked over the shoulders of our developers to point out errors in their code, which was causing me system issues. Because they knew, although they knew the coding language, the developers, didn't understand business processes and what business rules to code for. And so from there, I was hooked and realized that technology was a very valuable vehicle to solve many business problems and help any kind of company become more efficient, save money, and most importantly, grow their bottom and top line revenue. And I soon found myself moving over to the tech space in a more functional role within IT. My career was propelled when I received my master's in business administration with an emphasis in information systems and operations management from USC, which allowed me to get into leading in various management positions, including director, executive director, vice president roles, and then as the helm as the chief information officer in the home entertainment division at Sony Pictures Entertainment, also in Los Angeles and Culver City. I also did a stint as a chief digital officer at the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, where I helped transform their digital strategy and connect more parents and students to be able to prepare, plan, and pay for college, which led to another CIO role at a private equity-backed commercial landscape and construction company, also in Los Angeles. I started at Sony Pictures, where I went from the lowest entry-level position, and this was the lowest union level 4 entry-level position. I think I was making $11.25 in 1991, to the divisional CIO of that organization. And that's where I hopscotched into other C-level roles, where today I'm the deputy director CIO at the White House. Wow. And so you may say that I've been pretty lucky my entire life, but I see luck is where opportunity and preparation meet. And if you dissect my career journey and pull it apart and look at the formula, my formula is preparation plus intention equals advancement. So don't get me wrong, I've had obstacles, but any obstacle can be overcome. Thank you.
Wow, amazing journey and story that could inspire anyone. Yes, it's from a waitress to the White House. That deserves a book or a movie.
I don't know about that.
So I'm going to now invite Pedro to speak, give his own background, his own story that equally will elevate us to new thoughts, dreams, visions for what is possible at a very young age as well, from what I hear. Go ahead, Pedro.
Thank you, Caroline, and it's an honor being here with our friends from LULAC. Pedro Espinoza de Peru. I was born and raised in Peru until I was 18 and came to the US. And similar to Marcela, I really love your story. I honestly started in Peru when I was a kid, fixing engines in cars. So I would intern and just work at like convenience stores and then like car shops, como mecánico. And I really loved it because Peru, like many of our Latin American countries, is very diverse. So like we even had a Peruvian Japanese president, Fujimori, a couple of years ago. So when I was working as a teenager and as a kid, I would connect with people from different parts of Peru who are from the Amazon rainforest, where we have pink dolphins, from the coast, where we have penguins, to from the mountains, where we have snow. And so people, Peruanas, Peruanos from different generations and countries and ethnicities, and that helped me become an inclusive leader. It helped me become an open-minded leader and appreciate people that come from different zip codes and religions and nationalities and perspectives. And so my story really is big thanks to family. I'm the youngest one. I have two older sisters, Diana and Karina, and they're extremely super generous. They helped me get into college. I came to Stanford. I went to Berkeley for business school and been very blessed, you know, and with Caroline, we talk this a lot, but unfortunately, there's a lack of representation, right? When you go to an engineering class at Stanford, when you go to a business school like Haas or Harvard, I was like the only person of color or like the only person from Latin America there. And so that's one of the things that we want to change is by being not only role models, but like vouching and wearing your t-shirts, sponsoring more Latinas, sponsoring more Hispanics in tech so we can grow, right? Because the US is almost 20% Hispanic, right? Like US born Latinos are the 7th largest GDP in the world. And that does not include non-US born Latinas y Latinos like me, right? So it's even bigger. But anyway, to summarize, I started my first tech company when I was 19, raised capital from the Jeffrey CEO, the Dean of Berkeley and other schools as well, hired about 29 people, had like PhDs, and a lot of people double or triple my age as a 19-year-old founder. And we got Aqua hired in 2018. And it was a super cool experience. And then by being there, I got invited to participate at Univision's Hispanic Shark Tank in Español in Los Angeles. That's where Marcela is from. And a lot of people were like, there are very few people like you who are leading tech, like SaaS software companies. And so little by little, I was growing my network and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start writing a book on like how to fuel innovation through inclusion, because it can't be that in California, you know, we have more CEOs named John than the total number of female CEOs. And so I started interviewing more and more people, and I got to meet people like Eric Schmidt from Google and Reed Hastings from Netflix. And at the end, the book got published in 2019 called Differences That Make a Difference. So for more than 5 years, I've been working with many companies like Adobe, Walmart, Splunk, Google, and others, how to create an inclusive culture and help them prepare for the future of work. And yeah, last but not least, I'm the Vice President of Business Development at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and I'm absolutely here to serve and to be an ally, a sponsor, right? We need males to sponsor females in the workplace. We need non-Hispanics, non-Latinas to sponsor Latinas in the workplace. So we're all in this together, and let's connect on LinkedIn. I love that Angela, Marcela, like everyone, Alicia, they're sharing their communities, because you never know who or when or how. And we're familia, right? So let's focus on unity. Gracias. Un abrazo.
Gracias, Pedro. What an amazing story. So inspiring for all the parents, the professionals in education, every walk of life, whether to call to action, to become a sponsor, open those doors, lift as you climb, as my niece Alicia Ponce says in her architecture nonprofit space. We all have a way of doing this, and it can be done. So this is, and you're the role model for Latinos, and that we are born entrepreneurs, and that's perfect segue for the Latina poster child of computer science, Abril, and I have asked her partner in crime to join as well, and because her story is very similar. So Abril, please join us in your story, and feel free to include your great friend and partner Julia Flores, who have both joined LULAC, and Pedro will at the end we'll talk about how can LULAC help with your cause and vice versa. So please, Abril.
Yes, I also saw Julia give us the time warning, so I'll try to keep it brief to make sure we can get to the Q&A portion of this. So I'm so happy to be here with all of you. So my journey in tech started in high school thanks to a couple of amazing teachers. I think a theme here today has definitely been that the mentorship leadership, and having those folks really kind of provide you that step up at some point in your career. Education is definitely very valuable, and for me it's always been educators. And so it's not surprising that I ended up in education kind of professionally, or fell in that route. But in high school, I started studying computer science on accident. So I had to sign up for an elective, and I didn't want to study music because I didn't play an instrument, art because I wasn't good at it. And the counselor who recommended that I take a computer science class, and it was solely because I already knew how to use PowerPoint. So they registered me for computer science, and it was my first class my freshman year of high school. And by first class, I mean, I walked in on Monday morning and I sat down at a computer and I was already overwhelmed. But I had a teacher who, he had kind of had this eye-opening experience the year before, that there was a diversity issue happening in his courses, that women weren't being included in the higher level courses. They weren't being retained. They weren't continuing to enroll. There was obviously a compounding issue with women of color. So that includes the Black and Brown students. And he was really focused on making sure that myself and my friends felt included in his classes. He spent extra time with us, making sure that we understood the material. He signed us up for out of school events. And those were the opportunities that I really needed to feel connected with the material, because sitting for 100 minutes because we had block periods was not fun for me. I didn't like being at the computer for that long, fussing with code that never works. But what did connect for me was feeling like I could build things that were going to change the communities around me. And I would be okay with continuing to study computer science if that's what it took to feel like I could make that kind of an impact. So I continued to enroll in the classes, and I studied for 4 years at high school. And during those 4 years, Chicago, where I was based, was starting the Computer Science for All initiative. We were trying to take the computer science classes that we were piloting at my high school and get them into all 116 at that time high schools across the city. And because I felt so overwhelmingly impacted by what I was experiencing, I felt like this should be available to every student that was in high school at that time. So not only did I get involved in what was going on at the city level and through Chicago Public Schools with the Board of Education, but I also started a nonprofit to start reaching students directly, because we all know that education and policy changes take forever. So talking to students one-on-one as quickly as possible was really my goal. I continued doing that for as long as I could. In college, I continued working with students one-on-one, and Computer Science for All became a very big movement. So Chicago was successful in getting things started. They got a graduation requirement, which was a big deal for me personally, and kind of made me feel like all of this would be possible. In college, I came back to Chicago as an intern because I wanted to see the fruits of my labor. I wanted to see what it would be like to be in those schools that had never seen this before, but now had the opportunity to enroll in these courses and talk to those students, talk to those teachers. So I interned for 2 years to really be on the south and west sides of the city, developing summer programs and really comprehensive in-school programs. And I kind of just fell in love. I always thought I would be an engineer, but that's not the path I took. And long story short, I ended up going to the Department of Computer Science at Chicago Public Schools full-time, really passionate about these non-traditional pathways, because I ended up in a non-traditional pathway. I had spent so long studying to become an engineer, and then I was like, no, this is not it. I'm really passionate about helping other folks become engineers, especially other folks who look like me, because this changed my life, right? This was not something I thought that would be possible for me. And so as Caroline mentioned, myself and Julia Flores, who's here with us today, We met when we were at the Office of Computer Science developing this comprehensive district-wide program for Chicago public schools to make sure that K through 12 students had access to computer science education. And as we continued to develop that work, we decided, this should really be available nationally and internationally. So we started a consultancy, Computer Science for Success, which is focused on making computer science education more equitable, accessible, and inclusive, specifically at the high school level, because we want to focus on that hands-on skills training, work-based learning, and helping to further develop that career pipeline for students so that they can really understand the comprehensive scope of their opportunities once they graduate high school. And I'm happy to pass the mic to Julia to discuss a little bit about her path.
Yes, please join us, Julia, for a couple minutes before we go into the final question and chat. The time is just flying by, but definitely your own story, brief way to end this formal, and then we'll have a couple of we'll let people ask questions, or I can ask you the one question to end our great session, please.
Sure. My name is Julia Flores, and I am Chicago born and raised. My entire life, the South Side of Chicago. My entire education here in Chicago. I was lucky enough to see the inequities in education early in my career, and to see how debilitating that inequity was to success. And it really lit a fire in my life. And back then, I could hardly breathe without thinking about how the inequities really were skewed. It was to people who look like me, Black and brown people, right? And I was like, what is going on here? And I think I realized back then that the only way to fix this inequity was to have a voice, right? And that goes against what I was raised to do. My mom was an immigrant. She was like, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and do your work. And so I realized that you can't get anything done like that. So I started to use my voice. And it wasn't just a voice, you have to have an audience. And so you have to have the right people in the audience. And so I started to push. And I was like, I need to get in front of people to really affect change. And I became a teacher. And it was 150 students, right, a year. And then you got them and you had a chance to impact their life and push them into the world. And then I realized that wasn't enough. So then I became a director for smaller learning communities. And now I had 600 students, and it wasn't enough. And I pushed. And then it became, 16,000 students. And soon it became 500,000 students with the roles that I had. And it still wasn't enough. I wanted to reach every single student out there that was Black and brown and help them figure out how to get past the limitations of where they were born, right? Or even sometimes the limitations of what their parents saw for them, right? Just get a job, just in the factory is fine, it worked for me. And I'm like, but you can do so much more. And so that's what I've dedicated my life to, is to pushing and to getting in front of the right people, and to making sure that when people are making decisions, that Black and brown students are on their mind. And that's how I got here. And when you all said, can you join us? I was like, yes, because this is a bigger audience and there are so many important people here. And if we together joined our voices, how many more students can we affect? How many more people? And so that brought me here. And that's why we started CS for Success, because outside of the district, millions of students are out there.
Thank you, Julia. What a way to end this great, inspiring stories. My way is through a movement for CS for Latinx. Theirs is the Success for All through their work. Marcela, and I know it's towards the end, but in a short, a high level, where do you see LULAC to be? The new LULAC, past 100 years from what we're known to the topics of the discussions today. Where do you see, Marcela?
Yeah, I think LULAC really should have a strategy that addresses the issues and get louder, right? So if LULAC has a voice, that needs to be amplified and it needs to be heard across end to end everywhere. I think also just aligning on maybe 2 to 3 key messages that we keep referring to, whether it's equal pay or representation in STEM leadership or equity in broadband access or whatever those things are. There's a lot of different issues. What are the 2 to 3 things that would really make the most impact in the Latino community, and what would really drive like long-lasting generational wealth and improve quality of life for everybody. So I say, LULAC, help us.
Yes, and I say, Marcela, help LULAC. So Pedro, give us your, a minute or so, 2 minutes of where do you see LULAC? If there was, because as an appointed position from the national president and working closely with the national staff, I'll take your voices and you can open the voices. You already know Cindy, CEO, and a great speaker and motivator. So, okay, help us convey that to LULAC and then to the voice that you're going to suggest. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. I think having role models really helps, right? We were talking about this a few days ago, and we can leverage the LULAC platform and do local events like one in Chicago, one in San Francisco, one in Washington, DC, and just help the next generation of leaders, because it's hard. I mean, usually speaking, you can't be what you can't see, right? And that's why it's just different and hard. I mean, for me, it was normal because I grew up and I'm from Peru. So seeing my mom, an engineer, it was fine. Like it was, yeah, Latinas are engineers, But then I have a lot of friends that grow up in Oakland or East Palo Alto, and it's just hard, right? They're like, they don't have those role models. And they're like, how can I aspire to be an engineer or entrepreneur if all I see is our people working in restaurants, right? And no offense to that, but I just think the value of role models and exemplifying that is very important. So I just recommend that we focus on unity, and I love Marcela's focus on that, and consider me a resource, Caroline. I think we should just start the tour today.
Let's do it. Absolutely. Call to actions. It's all about Abril, your 1 or 2 sentences of what do you think LULAC can do differently with this new movement and this new perception of what our generation needs and wants and is.
Yeah, so I think the conversation about inspiring the next generation is really important. And I think in my experience, it's meeting the next generation, young people where they're at is incredibly important. I think role models and mentors is what's needed, and gaining that knowledge of how to continue to move forward in your career is key. And you gain that through mentors and role models, but knowing how to find those folks is what's difficult, right? And so I think meeting young people where they're at, which is often not where you're currently at, is the miscommunication. So I think finding a like community is what needs to happen.
Thank you. Well, that's LULAC, community, grassroots movement. Yes, we need to pull and grab and hold and coach the next current and next generation for them as our leaders that are underway with the fastest growing population. Julia, your message was amazing. Any a couple of words, and then we can close the session by thanking everyone, the audience, the participation. The chatting is going to happen right next, so you're not being left out. Please join us at the next Zoom link that you received. Would you like to say a couple words, Julia, before we close?
I say let's roll it into the next session.
Let's roll it. I don't know if you could just put in the chat the Zoom. Everybody should have the Zoom link of what that is. And if it's not that quickly, we're getting ready to sign off. But definitely in your registration, you should definitely have it. So until next, only on the next minute or so. And then all these conversations in social capital building that we're talking about is going to be happening. And it's just the beginning. Just the beginning. So see you soon, and thank you again for such an amazing, inspiring conversation. Talk soon.